Viewers, hello Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Let's play chess. I finished this game about 3 minutes ago, 2 minutes, 3 minutes ago. Talk about a weird game shape. Look at this game shape here. It's a level but a little bit rocky, and then about halfway through the game, so maybe 25 moves in, black takes a strong lead and becomes almost complete at one point, and then a blunder by black, white seizes things, an initiative or a material, or both. I played it all the way out to the end, and I was able to win against time trouble. And if that weren't enough, my opponent played three great moves. I played a brilliant move. This game looks like it's gonna be a real rocker, a real raucous game to review. So let's go ahead and do that. I had the white pieces here, and I started with the king's pawn opening. I sort of segued into the English opening, and we're on well-charted ground here. Knights develop. There's conservative or more aggressive ways to approach controlling or occupying the center. Bishop g5 was a nifty pin against the knight at f6. And it turned out to be long lasting. I'm not sure it was the winning move, but I thought it was a long lasting pin. Or I think it was a long lasting pin that served white well. Knight to c6 is okay. I was glad also to play knight takes c6, doubling pawns on the c file. I don't think the b file is going to be really all that big a deal for black to utilize with his rook from a8, moving it to b8, move 8. Nope, b8. What hour of the day is it? Anyway, rook b8 will seize the b file, but white will play something like pawn to b3, and by then maybe this knight has moved, or there's a way to make a graceful protection for the knight on c3, who might be pinned after a move like bishop b4. I'm overall not worried about the b file after recapturing here on c6. Bishop to d3. Just development. It's not all too much more than that. And now with my bishop here, I think I agree with the computer that I handled this incorrectly. Maybe pushing back or pulling back to h4, forcing the extension of black's kingside pawn structure in front of his king. If black really wants to ask the question of the bishop, then it will take a follow-up move to g5, and then white must move to g3 or fear losing his bishop for a pawn. And I was looking at g3 for my bishop. It's just not an active square hitting into this pawn wall that's so solidly protected. I don't, e5 is off because of the pawn that's so solidly there. And maybe then I could move to f4, but I will have taken more moves, and plus the pawn on g5. Let's deal with it. Let's admit it. It controls f4. g3 for my dark squared bishop. I thought he might as well take him off the board and put him back in only after like almost all the pieces are exchanged. So I thought my dark squared bishop had a brighter future than that, and I pulled him back maybe to exchange on e3, which is what happened. Bishop takes e3, pawn takes e3, and I was okay with that. But also there's the prospect of any move, almost any move. Rook to e8, bishop to b7, even though that's kind of weird. But bishop to a6. There are tons of moves here for black that will end up with bishop takes c5, d takes c5, and then what do we have but tripled pawns on the c file? And that's a serious pawn weakness. So I was at this moment with black to move. I was thinking he's probably going to capture he, she, or they, my opponent, he, she, or they are probably going to capture it, and if they do not, um, then I'm going to triple my opponent's pawns and probably be in good standing for the rest of the game. Now, bishop takes e3, pawn takes e3. Maybe this isn't the greatest route for white. I saw this position too, and I thought, well, the pawn on e3 and its friend or comrade on e4 are doubled, but actually this is not, my initial take is this is not so bad to have some of these pawns controlling the center, more than just the c pawn and the e pawn, but the other e pawn as well. And there's a knight involved. This bishop is strongly involved and have a really strong center. And I castle the king side. I'm not worried on the dark square diagonal from a7 to g1 because well, black has no dark squared bishop, and the queen is like worlds away from having that be a thing to do to push for checkmate or to push for check along that diagonal. So it's a really safe kingside castle, and yeah. So I think white. I thought white was doing well here. The only reason I say otherwise is because the evaluation bar has black stronger by 2 pawns worth of material. By 2 points, black is stronger here than white, and torch 4 must see something. Let's take a quick look into the analysis window. So yeah, it's knight g4 is strong, and a5 is strong. Then it kind of trails off a little bit, but you see that black has 5 moves, which puts torch 4 ahead by 3/4 of a pawn or more. This is a flexibly good position for black here. I wouldn't have thought that, to be honest. I wouldn't have thought that. Anyway, we go back to review, and bishop to g4 has been indicated as a mistake. I played bishop e2. The tactics, I thought after kingside castles, and then here we go. Sometimes you have a feel for the position. I also knew that this was going to be fine for this was going to be at least fine for black. So rook takes f6, g takes f6. Did I really have the right intuition that this was going to be fine for white? I meant to say white before, by the way. But this brilliant sacrifice, bishop takes e2. What are we going to do? Queen takes e2, makes sense. Then the pawn captures on f6, and it's just black ahead by 2 pawns worth of material, and we don't really see necessarily a way out of that, except that white gets this long-lasting attack on black's king side. Queen to h5. So black has some difficult choices here. Be a miserly king and go to h7, where then there is maybe even more than before an attack coming. The rook at a1 swings over to f1. This pawn on f6 looks like lunch meat, and the knight can even maybe swing over after a pawn sacrifice on e5. And white has a serious attacking force going here. Rook to f1, rook to g8, and white's attack just sort of makes itself known. Some great defensive moves. And I might go over this later, see why, well, black is ahead by the evaluation bar and the material count. Both would see black at an advantage of about 1 pawn's worth of points, 1 pawn's worth of material for sure, and then same on the evaluation bar. Queen f5 is not the greatest move. I don't want to go over alternatives on this, and we trade queens. course, capturing with the rook here. What a blunder would it be to have my queen captured on f5? Okay, yeah, I got your queen too here. And I'm winning a tempo on you. Ah, where's my rook gone? He's gone. My rook's gone and totally gone. So instead of that, capturing with the back treading, rook takes f5. Rook g8 wasn't a good move. I'm very critical of rook a to g8. Rook a to g8 in this position. I'm very critical of that move. I think it's good to get the rooks doubled, and I liked it from a competitor's standpoint, but from a reviewer's standpoint, that pretty much allows rook takes f7, and black will probably block with the rook at g8 by moving to g7. It's also possible that for the king to play to h8, white will take the time to play pawn to g3, but still it's going to be a real pain in the tuchus with the king back here not very active, and then having to put the currently g8 rook on c8 to protect c7. That's a heck of a babysitting job, really. I mean, to spend a whole rook to protect the back end of a double pawn duo on the c file. So yeah, I think my opponent made the more active choice, which is rook to g7, and I was glad actually to trade. Was I glad to trade rooks on g7? Yeah, I mean, I thought rook takes g7, no matter who takes g7 after that, it's my opponent's rook is on his own now. It's not doubled on the g file, which was quite scary. So at this point, I'm kind of like bummed I might not win this game, even I've had a little bit of good fortune. I played pawn to g3, make just this g file really strong in favor of white, close down potential trades and so on. So, black plays rook to b8, and I'm glad to play b5 because there's an array of black pieces on dark squares, all of which are American dreams. If you think about them, chess is part of it. So they're all of these dark squares, you know, it's there. And I played b5, c takes b5, and knight takes b5, trying to take advantage of how these pawns are all a little bit easy to target. And at this point, it looks like the evaluating engine has black way ahead. What is this? What is white doing? And you could have rook to b7. Right, was a strong sort of countermeasure to knight to b5, protecting both the a pawn and the c pawn. The c pawn protects the d6, and it looks really good for black there. So I would suggest rook to b7 there in a similar position in the future. But hey, we snatched a pawn on d6. And sometimes you just get lucky. I'm grabbing a couple pawns. I'm saying, well, look, here's the thing. I'm gonna get as close as I can to catching the promoted pawn, the queen, and then I actually got the pawn, and so I'm thinking, well, maybe this could go through here. I think under the pressure to match your opponent's tempo a bit, black lost sight of the g pawn, and now queen to g8. I pick up even the rook on e2. This is bonkers. I'm not trying to gloat, but I fell into a great deal of happenstance or luck, or both. Here I'm all pre-moves and going to cut off the king at the 5th rank, and here we go. take a timeout to move to h5, then g7, queen h8 is checkmate. Crazy, crazy, crazy game. It was a strange game. Everything from the game graph to the moves, to the time scramble at the end. Love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, that's it for streaming and broadcasting for me tonight, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.